people in America fear their government, and the government is being run by too many powerful agencies like the IRS and others. I think it's time the people take the country back through their representative government.
Politician living on that hill, living in that life of luxury on we the people's bill. Don't have a clue how the other half lives, and that is a shame. It's time to stop the tyranny. You keep pushing through your bills. Going for revolution, going for it now. It's time to save our Constitution while we still got the guns in our hands.
Hi, welcome to Freedom TV. I'm Renee Kimball, your host, and we're going to have a great program for you today. Judith Golden and Earth Magic Tours. These are not your grandmother's tours. So I think you'll really enjoy this. But first, I want to talk to you a little bit about what I've been doing all week. I've actually been going in and poll watching, actually looking at the entire process of when the ballots come in and what happens to them. And what we're going to do is I'm going to run a few pictures for you. These are sanctioned. They were done with the permission of the Elections Board, and it will give you an idea of how the process works. So the first picture coming up is the boxes coming in. These are the red ones are from the drop boxes, so these are the ones going back out, but they come in and they have the ballots in them. The next one shows you some of the ones from the library. These are the boxes that come in from the library. They are locked at the library, and there's a slot in the top so you can just put your ballot into it. And then they come into the elections office. And for the next one, this is the room that they come into. And this is the room where they check them to make sure that they're signed. The back of the ballot is signed, that they're not torn, there's something isn't terribly wrong with them. And then they're put into boxes and sent over to the next room, which is the scanning room. And here they all get scanned in. And if you see that little box in the front, that is the order that they're in the box, is the order that they're scanned in. And so the signatures come up in that particular order. And in the next picture, you'll be able to see the box. We keep coming back to me. I'm not that terribly interesting. If we go to the one up top, the standalones, the series, it might be a little bit easier, but that's okay. This is the box, and in the order that they are in the box is the order that they're scanned in. So when they signature, from here after the scanning, they go into the signature room, and that's the next picture. And this is the room where they compare the signature on the ballot with the signature on the screen. And this is, I understand in past years you were actually able to be inside the room, and previous to that you were actually able to stand behind the person, which to me would have been much more advantageous, because from the position you are outside the room at this window, you can see what's on some of the computer screens, but unfortunately you aren't able to see the ballots. So unless somebody actually lifts the ballot up to their face, you can't tell whether the signatures are the same. So unfortunately, we are not able to see much of this process, and I think the main value of our being there is the presence outside the window. Not that I think anybody would be doing anything purposefully, but this is kind of a mind-numbing job, to be honest with you. And can you get tired? Can you get a little bit off color, a little tired, maybe a little hungry? Sure, anything could happen. And the unfortunate thing is we are not able to see whether the person is actually doing it accurately or not. I'm assuming that they are, and I do not, under any circumstances, believe there is any ill intent in any of the people who are working here. But I do think people get tired, and it would be better to be able to see, be able to check more on what they're doing. The next stop that we get is it goes back to that first room, and here it's put into precinct order. So the boxes are now sorted out into specific precincts for Multnomah County. Again, this is all Multnomah County, and each county does it entirely differently. So the process from here, it is all sorted, then it goes downstairs for the next picture, and goes into the room where the ballots are actually opened. Way back in the left-hand side, you can see a little bit of a green, and that's the green room where all the ballots are stored, both at overnight and when they're opened and flattened out. The boxes that you see on the carts are the ones that are being brought to each election board table. I think there are 28 tables, and there are 4 people at each table. The next picture gives you a little bit better close-up. This was taken between the barriers because the barriers were smoke-colored, and all the pictures turned out kind of bad. This, you can see that the room goes back a long ways, and there are 4 people at each table, and these people are the ones who are responsible with opening the ballots, opening the secrecy ballot, and the secrecy envelope, and then checking the ballots. The 16 tables that you can see up front next to the barriers, you can pretty much see everything that everyone's doing. Unfortunately, that whole area in the back there that you see directly behind these women, you cannot see anything of what these people are doing, which is incredibly unfortunate. As I understand it from people that I spoke to, in past years, observers were actually allowed in that area to observe. So I think that we kind of made a back step here in our ability to have the system be transparent. At no time, I have to really compliment the people at the elections office. We were treated with respect. We were treated graciously, kindly. All of our questions were answered. Nothing was ever hidden. And I felt very confident in the people who were there and the people who were doing the job. I have to give them high marks for coming day after day and doing this, because it's a toughie. It's a really tough job. So now they're opening the ballots. What the process is, they open the ballots. After all of the secrecy ballots are out of the mailing envelope, they take the envelopes off the table. Then they start working with the secrecy ballots. And then here they are opening the secrecy envelopes and taking the ballots out. The ballots are not unfolded at this point. They are just left in a pile, so you really can't see them. Any of the ballots that came in and didn't have a secrecy envelope inside the mailing envelope are put inside a manila folder. They're not looked at separately, and the only time that they are opened is at the end process and end of the process when they're opened here. These are the opening of the ballots. Oregon is the only state that is allowed to do something called enhancing the ballots. And what this means is clarifying what the voter's intent would be. On this particular ballot, you can't see it really well because I'm not a terribly good photographer, but there is a circle, two circles are blacked out. One of them has an X over it. So the intent is assumed to be that the X'd one is, I don't want this person, I want the other person. So what the ballot person does at the election board table is put a white sticky over that second one so that when it goes through the machine, it will be red. Otherwise, it will be counted as an overvote, and that particular vote on that particular person will not be counted. The next picture is an example of enhancement where the person obviously didn't read the instructions and used a number 12 pencil, and it was so light you could practically see through it. The machine's not going to read this, so the worker marks it over with a red highlighter, and this the machine will read. One of the things that they are supposed to be doing is consulting with the other people at the table anytime they change anything on a ballot. And the next picture shows you one of the best tables there. There was a group of 4 ladies right up next to the window. They set every ballot that there was a question on aside and then conferred on those ballots after they were done with all the rest, which I think was probably the best process. A lot of times people would confer just for a second with maybe one other person. I think that this is probably one of the weakest points, that this process that the ladies were following is the one that should be followed. And in that regard, I think that I would like to see it a little bit more standardized in that regard. But that's a quick and easy look at the process. These are some of the ballots that were not deliverable. They were stacked in an area, and apparently they're going to be moved or warehoused, archived, or destroyed in December. And these are the machines. These are the little puppies that all those flattened out ballots will be going through, and that will be starting on Tuesday. So if you want to come ballot watch, come on down. Anyone can do it. Just come down, make sure you have ID. Don't wear any perfume or anything like that, because there's a lot of people there who might be sensitive to that sort of thing. So it's your opportunity to have a say in what's going on and have an actual look at the process. Now we're going to quick smart go to surviving and thriving, and this time it's going to be navigation and fish hooks. So with that, we will chuff off into the distance with surviving and thriving, and in the future I will tell you about a special show on the ballot process that I'll be doing. Surviving and thriving.
You can avoid getting lost out in the wilderness by simply having a small button compass like the one I have here. A little compass 101 for you. Unlike a standard compass, a button compass has a floating dial instead of a floating needle, which is significant in the fact that the north on the dial here is always going to be locked into magnetic north. Significant is where you point the compass, because that is going to be your line of direction. As I'm holding my compass right now, using this point right here as my line of direction, it's indicating to me that I'm pointing in a east-southeast direction, which is also called a bearing or an azimuth. I'm going to point it out directly in front of me, look out there and see what object I can walk to. In this case, it's going to be that big ponderosa pine tree out there about 100 yards. When I get to that pine tree, I'm going to redo this process all over again, from object to object, so that I continue on a straight line going east-southeast. It's always a good idea, before you venture into the woods away from your car, to get your bearings. In this case, we have an east-west running road. I'm going to be going to the south of this road. So if I get disoriented or lost, all I really have to do is go in a northerly direction to get back to my automobile or to get back to the road. If you take a few moments just to do this simple orientation before you leave, you're going to avoid getting lost. One of the absolute easiest ways to procure food out here, next to collecting insects, which I understand some of you may have some problems with, is with fish hooks. Whether it's fish or fowl, an assortment of fish hooks attached to leader with some weights in it is going to provide you a real good opportunity to put food in your stomach. Surgical tubing is another one of those multi-useful items that I put in my survival kit. There's a lot of uses for them. As a drinking straw, as a tourniquet. Some instructors like to put them in their kits as triggering devices for snares, but I put them in my survival kit for a whole different reason.
At a survival clinic recently, my wife scolded me for introducing my slingshot as a viable option for procuring food. It's way too complex for the majority of your audience, she said, and she was right. That is, until I figured out a way to simplify it. I reasoned that I could take the same two components that I used to revolutionize survival shelter construction, duct tape and zip ties, and make a pretty good slingshot. I discovered that I could make a pocket by overlapping the surgical tubing by approximately 4 inches and securing the ends with zip ties. Zip ties could also be used to secure the tubing to the 2 posts on the slingshot. From experience, I do recommend doubling the zip ties for added security, though. Another adaptation that I came up with a few years ago was adding a wrist brace. This allowed me to stretch the surgical tubing much further and hold it longer without overstressing my wrist. It made for a much more powerful wrist rocket, so powerful in fact that it spawned another idea. By shortening the height of my post, I created a slingshot that could shoot arrows. And in doing this, this would allow me to go after game much bigger than a rabbit. This is called an Hawaiian sling, also known as a poor man's spear gun. It would have served Tom Hanks' character well in the movie Castaway. They really pack a wallop.
Hi, welcome back to Freedom TV, and I'm here today with Judith Golden, and we're going to be talking about Earth Magic Tours. Now, first of all, I love the name.
Thank you.
How on earth did you come up with the name Earth Magic Tours?
I had a business that was retail wholesale in Olympia for 26 years called Earth Magic.
Ah, there you
so
go.
I just went with that.
Yeah, that's a great name.
Thank you.
Now, tell me a little bit about why you decided to go from retail to taking people on tours of Southeast Asia. I mean, that's kind of a jump.
Well, in my retail store, it really wasn't. I brought home photos from all of my journeys. My customers looked at them and said, I want to go. So I put a tour together. And then I started putting educational tours together and then family tours together. I have a honeymoon tour.
A honeymoon tour, that's great. Great. And so these are our tours. And now one of the things that I noticed is that when you go on these tours, these are not your, let's stay at the Hilton tour.
No, and we don't go on the tour buses either.
Exactly. That was the amazing thing that I found, was that your tours are what everybody thinks they're going to get when they sign up for a tour, but never, it's like, and here we have the stock photo of the pyramids.
Right.
Oh, goody. So why did you decide to take this a little bit more rustic? Mm-hmm. And describe some of the things that you do on your tours.
Sure.
They're a little bit different.
Well, I take people to play the way I play. And I felt like I created journeys for people to see Thailand and Cambodia through my eyes, because I don't think I see these two countries like most people do. And I stopped listening to media and stopped listening to the warnings and everything, and just went. So I've met a lot of people there. I have a lot of friends in both countries who have shown me what it really is. They're not just the tourist routes.
Right, and you get to see the way people really live.
Yes.
What do you find about these tours? One of the things that I wanted to mention about your tours is that there's shall we say, an added thing on the itinerary that a lot of tours don't get, and that's the purpose of why you're actually doing these.
Thank you.
Because they're tours, yes, people are going, they're having fun, but there's also a reason that you're going on these tours. Can you tell me a little bit about, okay, tours are great and everybody has a lot of fun and they're wonderful, but why did you decide to add on this other component? Describe it for me and tell me why you decided to add that in.
Sure. When I first decided to go to Cambodia, everybody in my life said, "Are you crazy? It's dangerous there." So I got my ticket. But in preparation, I visited with many Cambodian survivors, and I asked them, what could I take as a gift from America to people in Cambodia? What could I take as a gift? And they were numb with ideas and options, because Cambodia is a country with nothing.
Yeah.
So anything works.
Like,
anything works.
Bring us anything, we'll take it.
So I talked to a Cambodian monk in Olympia and asked him what I could do. I knew there were many landmine victims in Cambodia, and I asked what would be the most accepted, what would make somebody the most excited a gift. And he said very simply, papers and pencils and pens. And so that started my little campaign. I asked for donations and worked with Vietnam vets and bought a pallet of school paper, and slowly but surely I fill up everybody's suitcases that are going over. I tell them leave space because we'll put school supplies in and we'll give them all away, and then you go shopping and fill up your suitcases and bring it all back. So you know,
a great idea.
It's a plan.
Right, and it's a win-win. My gosh.
Yes.
Besides, who needs to be taking more than a couple changes of clothes
That's
anyway?
it.
So you
That's
just take
it.
a big suitcase
That's right.
and fill it up and take it along with you.
That's right.
So when you first started, how long have you been doing this now?
About 12 years.
About 12 years. So, and how many tours have you, do you do one a year or two
well,
a year?
A couple of years I was doing 3 and 4
Really?
a year. So I was hopping back and forth a lot. But I missed a year. I only went once that year. So it just varies. Really
so it varies on the number of people.
Sure.
And how many people do you actually bring with you on the tour?
One time many times I've just taken myself. Sometimes those
That's
are
a good
more
tour.
fun.
Yeah.
And then I've taken up to 13 guests and some of my family members.
That's a crowd.
It was fun.
Really?
Yeah, it was really fun. We did a lot.
Oh, describe some of the things that you do on these tours. Where do you?
If we're doing, usually I like to take people 2 weeks to Thailand. You don't really know you're there until, unless you've gone for 2 weeks. And so usually I like to say 2 weeks in Thailand and 1 optional week in Cambodia. Some people don't have time. Some people don't want to go to Cambodia.
Right.
And so I do it as an option. So we'll land in Bangkok and go to the Grand Palace and some of the most gorgeous temples in the world to learn the true Thai culture. Right. Once you step into that realm, you learn very quickly what's appropriate and what's not appropriate within the culture. And then, of course, we have to go to the ruins. We have to go ride the elephants and play with all my elephant friends. And then we have to hit the beach.
Okay, sounds good.
And then Cambodia, of course, is ruins.
And then what do you do about eating on the trip?
I eat like crazy on the trip. I eat everything I see. The food in Southeast Asia is always fresh.
Really?
Everything is picked or caught or prepared usually that morning.
Really?
Yes. I forget all about chocolate and sugar and stuff when I'm there because there's too many good sticky rice and mangoes and all kinds of yummy stuff, and I eat all day long like the Thai people.
Right. So, and it's basically you're eating what the normal average Thai person would be eating.
Yes. I'm a vegetarian.
Right.
It's very easy to be a vegetarian in Southeast Asia because that's how the monks eat, and it's very well respected there. And there's even vegetarian holidays. So it's really easy for me. It's a piece of cake.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you're on these tours, what are some of the reactions of the people? I mean, do people really understand what they're getting into when they do this?
No. And one of my favorite things to do in line of this surprise, the surprise tour is I like to put people on a boat. I don't tell them we're going on the boat. I just say, well, now we're going to do something really fun. And we get in a little tiny boat, we fill it with coconuts, and we just cruise down the Chao Phraya River, the River of Kings, and it's fascinating. It's just fascinating everywhere. People are clicking their cameras, and everything's so much fun. And then we round a bend, and then there'll be an elephant standing there, and I wait to see who's going to notice it first. And then people squeal in delight and lean over in the boat. You have to balance the boat. And then we'll pull up to the dock and go play with the elephants. And if we're lucky, and if I time it just right, the herd of elephants will be coming into the river to take their bath as we arrive, which is like, are you kidding me?
Yeah,
it's incredible.
So this is the real up close and personal tour. It's definitely not the hands-off. Oh, I want to just see it through a glass mirror here. It's like,
No, but I definitely look like a tourist with all my cameras and stuff hanging on me. Oh, yeah.
Have you ever had anybody who's just freaked entirely?
At me?
No, I meant at the
on the tour.
On the tour, and just gone. I thought I was going to the Hilton.
Oh no.
No, really.
No.
That's excellent.
No, we have too much fun to stop and think about it.
Really. So
we really do.
Even the people who are kind of a little bit reticent, they kind of get into it pretty
Absolutely.
quickly.
It's not hard to
No.
just sink right in once you've gone through those first initial days of culture shock.
It's like, but what do you mean there's no TV?
Yeah, well, there is TV actually.
Oh, really? So there is TV in most of the places that you go
satellite
to?
TVs. Internet is abundant. It wasn't in Cambodia. The first time I went to Cambodia was right after they allowed the monks to return, and it was still very new to tourists. I went in 2003. The country was just opened in 2001. So I got to go when it was freshly opened, and people were really excited to have company from the outer world.
Are they still very surprised when you show up in these rural and remote places?
Oh yeah, I've been screamed at by children. They thought I was a ghost.
Okay, a ghost, all right.
Cambodia is filled with ghosts from the war there, and so, and Cambodian people are very superstitious, and they believe in the ancestors. So, yes, I've been a ghost a few times.
So they looked at you and went, "Oh my God, you're a ghost."
One baby screamed so hard we couldn't calm him down, so the mother had to take him somewhere else, and the grandmother and I sat and held hands and laughed. I don't speak Khmer, but I speak Thai. Well, she was a survivor, so she was in a Thai military camp and had to learn how to speak Thai so we could communicate in Thai. And grandmas are grandmas in any language.
That's true. Well, we're going to take a short break and go to a video that Judith has put together about some of her travels. And I believe this one is going to be Cambodian wells. This is another project we'll talk about after the video. So right now we're going to take a short break and have a look at some of Judith's tours. And this one in particular is in Cambodia, and it's about the well project that she helped put together there. Welcome back. I think that gave you a little bit of a flavor of what Earth Magic Tours is all about. And I'm here with Judith Golden, and we're talking about all the projects. And the projects you named off for me, it's like, I feel like I'm standing still, not doing anything in comparison to what you're doing. And one of the projects that really impressed me the most was this water well project that you did in Cambodia. Tell me a little bit about how this all started and what your whole purpose in doing that was.
Sure. I took a big group with almost $1,200 in collected donations and tons of school supplies to a very, very poor village full of landmine victims. And we spent Thanksgiving Day with them one year in the village with the chief, whose hands were blown off, and every person in the village had parts of their bodies blown up by landmines. And it was so much fun to be with this tribe, this village of people who are have nothing and no means, and yet so sweet. And at the end of the day, I have a son who's adopted me, and I said to him, Renette, this was really cool. We did a very cool thing. I said, what's next? And he said, Mom, I think now we can put a water for the village. I said, good idea.
Wow.
So I said, you tell me what we have to do, and the next time I come back, we'll do it. So we emailed back and forth, and he found that there were 11 villages around Angkor Wat with no water. The Khmer Rouge has broken the water pumps and destroyed the wells to enslave the people. And it's been decades these people have been without water. And the thought of it just cringed my heart. So that was the next project, to start building water wells. When we did the 2 that you saw in the little video, it inspired some other people, and so now I've been given donations to go build 2 more, and another donation to build 1 went already with a friend to hook up with my son, and they're building a new water well next week.
Oh my God. And I want to point out that the donations that you get, you're not relying on government grants or foundations who rely on government grants.
Nope.
This is just you out there telling people about what you're doing and getting them on board with it. So to me, this is the most direct charitable gifting you can possibly have. This is people see immediately what's going on with their the feeling they have in their heart and the way that they want to help people. And this, you know, you don't have to wait 6 months down the block in order to see what's going on. And it's, you know, you don't see your money go up to the top, filter back down, and hopefully some of it goes to what you really wanted to do in the first place. So this is an incredible project.
Well, a good example of that too is right after the tsunami. Oh, I was in the ocean about a week and a half before the tsunami hit. Yes, in that area. And I lost friends in the tsunami, and I wasn't even unpacked when I got home, opened my suitcase and turned on the television and saw what was happening over and over and over again. And I had to do something. I had to. So I called school teacher friends of mine in Washington, California, Florida, and New York, the 4 corners of America. And they put their students to work making Valentine's Day cards to take for me to take with me. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So I took about 2,500 Valentine's Day cards to the land that was hit the hardest in southern Thailand and passed them out on Valentine's Day.
Oh, really?
Yes,
oh my
and that
God.
was
That's
delivering
incredible.
The best wishes and so much love from all these children in America who had seen this tragedy on television and wanted desperately to do something, didn't know what to do, but they did the best thing they could possibly do. They sent love.
They sent love.
They sent love. And
on Valentine's Day, no less.
Yes.
What
That was the coolest thing ever.
Thing. That is an amazing thing to have happen.
It was very cool.
And this isn't done through a big sponsored foundation.
No.
No, this is just people helping people. helping people.
Yes,
and
as
that,
it should
to
be.
me, that is the essence of charitable giving. Oh, no,
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, little eyes here going, little leaking in the eyes here. Nothing happening. And I do want to thank you so much for doing this kind of stuff, because to me, this is what charitable gifting is all about. People actually accomplishing something by doing this. Now, one of the things you told me about was some of the plans that you have for the future of possibly doing bigger and better things. Tell me a little bit about that.
I like to be in Cambodia with people there because they are so eager to learn. Cambodian people have been really, it was a very huge tragedy what happened in the country. And in Cambodia, I'm old. It's
Really?
a country wiped out of their elders from famine and disease and war.
Really?
Yes, and I'm old there. And
Wow.
so many people now call me grandma, and I love it.
That's incredible.
And they deserve help. And so I would like to put together some schools or at least lessons in English so that the local people in Cambodia can then talk to the tourists
Right.
and take over their
Right.
own businesses.
Right.
Many businesses are moving in from foreign countries because Cambodia is new and
Right.
they need help. So
need
they're
help.
going, yay, people are helping us, but
We want to do it ourselves.
they need to
Yeah.
do it themselves so they
Right.
have a future.
That's
So with
excellent.
the tool of English, they would have that.
They would have the ability to
Yes.
communicate with the businesses that are coming
Yes.
in and work for them.
And I take school supplies like crazy there, and even the adults are just so thankful to have a spiral notebook and a pen.
Wow, it's amazing when you think about it.
We throw paper away, it's no
That's
big
so
deal.
common to
Yes.
us. It's just, you know, you can go to any one of the, like Salvation Army or Goodwill or Deseret, and you can pile up those 25 deep for $10. And yet over there, they're worth more than gold.
Yes,
That's incredible.
people are desperate for education in Cambodia.
That's incredible. Now, how has the regime changed over there in the 12 years that you've been going?
Oh, well,
what's
I've been going
changed a
since
lot?
2003 to
Right.
Cambodia, and what has changed, drastic changes. The first time I went, there were no paved roads, there was no ATM, there was one bank,
Oh my God.
and no hotels.
Whoa.
They were guest houses, and beautiful, beautiful old colonial guest houses from when the
Wow.
French were in control of the country back in the 40s and 50s. And just really sweet little town. Well, now,
Yeah.
now already, in 5 years later,
5 years later,
the
my God.
Japanese have gone in and paved the main roads, and the locals are, yay, thank you so much. And the Japanese are building hotels, the Germans, the Swedes, everybody's in there building hotels. The Chinese
Really?
are hiring Cambodians for cheap labor.
Yeah, well,
And
that's
all
true.
these fancy hotels are going up, and no one's staying in them yet. I would be embarrassed to stay
Well, yeah,
in a
because you know
fancy
people and you
hotel.
stay in a fancy hotel. Oh my God.
I would rather give that money to the locals than stay in a cute little guest house.
Yeah, so would I. We're going to take a short break and come back, and then you're going to have an opportunity to ask some questions of Judith, and I'm sure you might have a few. It's not exactly an accessible place for us to know too much about. In fact, I don't really know anything about Cambodia. But we're going to take a short break right now, and we're going to see a film by the Moving Picture Institute. Has sponsored this one. It's called Freedom's Fury. It's kind of an interesting look at how people in another country react in a particular situation. And also, we're going to have 2 shorts on global warming. Now, one thing you'll notice about this show is that we don't actually play it safe. And if you're at the extremes of the political spectrum on either side, then this show might make you a little uncomfortable. So I think that both sides of an issue deserve to be heard and have a little bit of airtime. So this is a little bit of a short, 2 little shorts on another perspective of global warming. So Freedom's Fury and global warming.
Hope mobilized an entire country. And a group of unlikely heroes carried the torch of freedom for a brutalized nation. A water polo showdown, now known as the bloodiest game in Olympic history. Later, finally, the story will be told about a game that became legend. And a popular uprising that shook the world. One country, one chance for revenge. Freedom's fury.
There's something in these pictures you can't see. It's essential to life. We breathe it out. Plants breathe it in. It comes from animal life, the oceans, the earth, and the fuels we find in it. It's called carbon dioxide, CO2. The fuels that produce CO2 have freed us from a world of back-breaking labor, lighting up our lives, allowing us to create and move the things we need, the people we love. Now, some politicians want to label carbon dioxide a pollutant. Imagine if they succeed. What would our lives be like then? Carbon dioxide. They call it pollution. We call it life. You've seen those headlines about global warming. The glaciers are melting. We're doomed. That's what several studies supposedly found. But other scientific studies found exactly the opposite. Greenland's glaciers are growing, not melting. The Antarctic ice sheet is getting thicker, not thinner. Did you see any big headlines about that? Why are they trying to scare us? Global warming alarmists claim the glaciers are melting because of carbon dioxide from the fuels we use. Let's force people to cut back, they say. But we depend on those fuels to grow our food, move our children, light up our lives. And as for carbon dioxide, it isn't smog or smoke. It's what we breathe out and plants breathe in. Carbon dioxide, they call it pollution. We call it life.
Hi, welcome back. Judith, I'm so excited about these tours. I want to go.
Come with me.
I want to go.
Oh, we'll have so much fun.
Oh, yeah. I've never been anywhere. My big excursion was to Australia for a few years, and that's, well, hey, that's like going to Southern California, basically. It's not really like another country.
Well, every time I go, I do different things.
Really?
So different things happen to me every time, too. It's always fun for me as well.
What's the most exciting thing that's happened to you? What's the most incredible thing?
Oh, I've got it. The most exciting thing that ever happened to me in Thailand was one day when I was visiting the elephants. There's 170 in the herd now. When I first started going, there were only 47.
Wow.
So, yay, our elephants are growing in number. Thank you for the donations, everyone. And one day I was visiting, And a friend of mine who's an elephant trainer said, Judith, if you ever came here in pants, instead of those dresses that you always wear, we could go swimming with the elephants. I reached in my bag, I put on my pants standing right there.
Yeah, not missing this one.
I didn't hesitate for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And so up on the elephant we went, and out into the middle of the river. This is an elephant I've known for years.
Oh my gosh.
She laughed the whole time because I could not shut up. I kept going, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm really doing, oh, this is so much fun. Oh my gosh, I just could not shut up. So the elephant was laughing all the way into the river and all the way back out again. But she took me way out into the middle of the river and then dunked. So I was into water from my waist up. It looked like in the photos I'm sitting on top of the water. So that was really the most thrilling thing I think I've ever done in Southeast Asia.
My gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that qualifies as,
yeah, I'm still smiling from it.
A Class 1 thriller. Yeah, I certainly wouldn't mind.
And I
going
got
over
to
there.
sit with 2 live tigers. That was really fun too.
Really?
Like, sit down with them. That was like,
Really? Were they like tame tigers,
yeah,
hopefully?
Yeah, yeah.
Not out of the cage?
Yeah, they're out of the cage.
They're out of the cage. Oh.
And they're our team. So
really? Okay.
everything was
well,
really
that's
fun.
Good. Well, if you do
that was
have
thrilling.
if you do have any questions for Judith, I think the phone numbers are coming up. I can't see them in here, but do give us a call, and hopefully we'll be able to answer any of your questions. I'm sure Judith will be able to, and if you have any for me, but mainly Judith. Judith, I can't believe that you do this on a real regular basis.
As much as possible.
Do you ever get tired of it?
No.
No.
Oh, no, because each journey brings new everything.
Right.
New everything, new experiences, everything.
Right.
And I make new friends.
Do you go mainly to the same places, or is it each time you go a different location?
I like to do familiar places. I like to do things that I know will excite my guests.
Right.
But I always like to throw something new in the mix for myself.
Yeah.
Because I'm still exploring
Yeah.
and doing and things. But my friends in Southeast Asia love to mix it up with my groups. And it makes it more interesting for everyone if we can all go do something together or have dinner together, or know, and my groups, the people in my groups are happy because then they get real Thai culture with real Thai people, or real Cambodian culture with, Yeah. So it's more fun to just do things like that.
Nothing worse than going to a country and expecting to see the culture and winding up talking to somebody who went to Harvard.
Sure.
It's like, and this is, I don't know, this is not exactly what I would be expecting if I went to Southeast Asia. I believe we do have a call. Do you have a question for Judith?
My original question, before the last little film roll in there, my original question was going to be, have you investigated your carbon footprint for the tours? But I'm going to let that one go and ask my second question. The second question is, being that the water, the well water, the wells that you go through there and do, I have learned. You having trouble hearing?
Yes.
Hello.
They need to turn you up in here so we can hear you. There we go.
Let's see. One thing that I've learned in the past few years, an outfit that I've been hearing about for a long time, Dean Kamen. He's an inventor. He does a lot of things. If you've ever heard of the Segway, that little stand-up two-wheel roll-around gizmo, he has come up with something called the Vapor Compression Water Distiller. It's a standalone device. It originally started out as an electrical generator, but what he's done with the excess heat from that generator is made a device that you can put one end of the tube into a mud puddle or any brackish water, any water source, and out the machine comes fresh, pure, clean, drinkable water.
Whoa.
And with Judith, with your connections to what I would imagine would be the higher income group, beings that I'm sure I can't afford to go on your tours, but with your connections, if you go to DECA Research, D-E-K-A Research, and contact those people about the vapor compression distiller, he's looking for investors in this machine and applications, and I'm sure that with your connections and what I would imagine is the people with the dollars that you may have connections with can maybe put together something to where this device can be made very widespread over there where they absolutely need it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you giving that to us. And I'm sure Judith will check up on that. And I'll be checking up on that to have him come into the studio for a show. Thanks very much for that idea. Well, that'd be a great combination, wouldn't it? You could just put them together and there wouldn't be any problem. Oh, we've got another call. Yes, do you have a question for Judith?
Hello?
Hi. Do you have a question for Judith?
Yes, I do. Shall I keep the volume on or down?
Well, you can. It's fine in here. Go ahead. Ask your question.
Oh, okay. My question is, well, first I'd like to commend her for the well work, but she mentioned that she is of the older generation there. Well, you know, of course, we all know, at least if you've followed history, what happened to the older generation that was there.
Yes.
And is there any feeling there that the United Nations should have done something during that time?
Well, the country was so closed off, you know, and I think it happened at a time when Americans were sick and tired of hearing about Southeast Asia. And so I think that at first we didn't want to acknowledge that the Khmer Rouge had taken over the very day that our Vietnam soldiers and left the Starlight Hotel in Vietnam. And so I think that the world didn't want to know what the catastrophe was going on then.
Right, and so probably the UN didn't want to know either. So everybody was kind of shut out of the picture. But fortunately for us, we have people like you going in there now and changing things around by utilizing the charitable gifting mentality of a lot of people. And I know for a fact that a lot of your people are not well-heeled people.
No, they're not.
There are people that make a decision, yeah, I'm going to go do this.
Yes.
And then they save up and go. So
yes.
yeah, and it's something that I think every person
It's not as
should
much
have.
as you think
Yeah,
it is.
And it's
We don't stay in the fancy hotels.
See, if you stay with the elephants, it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad you could join us
Thank
today,
you.
Judith. I really appreciate this. And we're going to have an update. And you have to
Super.
bring me back more pictures. And I'll take a small elephant. Thank you very much.
Okay.
But I really want to thank you for coming and
Thank
sharing
you.
this with us, because this has really been something that has made me feel a whole lot better about the tourist industry. And frankly, I don't care what your carbon footprint is, because I think what you're doing far outweighs any carbon use that you happen to be doing.
Thank you.
And I
hope
commend
you
you
can
for
come
doing
with
it.
me someday. It's a blast.
I certainly hope to plan to do it. So thank you also for joining us today with Freedom TV. And I do hope that you can join us in future shows. Our show next week is going to be a very interesting one. It was Northwest Medical Teams, and now they're called Medical Teams International. Again, another organization totally funded by the gifts of charity. Join us next week on Freedom TV.
For the pain that it's been through, she's been made to suffer for the profit of a few. Storm clouds are forming, winds of change now touch our shores. Our forefathers are crying as the dream's been cruised. America, what's your Let your